Hello dear viewers, let's see how there are footprints without the feet. It's the title of a story and we'll see what is all about when we talk about the footprints without feet. The theme of the story, Footprints Without Feet, is that one should not misuse science and its great discoveries, as this can turn even a brilliant scientist into a threatening, lawless person. So that's the theme, that even a brilliant scientist can become a threat for the society because they are attached with people are attached with greed and misuse and all that. So that should not be there. Science should not be misused of. In the story, it is Griffin, a scientist who misuses his great discovery and becomes a threat to society. So basically, we are talking about Griffin. Griffin is a scientist, a very famous scientist, but then he becomes a threat to society. Like how? The two boys started in surprise at the fresh muddy imprints of bare feet. What was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? Now this is an excerpt of that entire piece, whereas the scientist is just trying to save himself. He's trying to save himself, and this is started when it looks very mysterious, though, that this starts when there are two boys and these boys are so startled. Suddenly this is set in the background of London, and in London there is a house, and suddenly there are footprints appearing. There are footprints appearing, just the footprints, not a person. So these boys are like little startled. How is it possible that there are footmarks without anybody else walking? And where was the man? As they gazed, a remarkable sight met their eyes. A fresh footmark appeared from nowhere, and they were gazing at the footprints, and suddenly they saw the footprints were moving ahead. So they were walking footprints without any person being seen. Further footprints followed one after another, descending the steps, and they are just going down the steps and progressing down the street. And these footprints, as if somebody is walking down the street, it is looking like that. But then there is no figure to be seen. There is no man seen, but the footprints are visible to two small boys. The boys followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter. So these boys were just following. Oh, see, the footprints are walking, the footprints are walking. And after some time, those footprints were like, muddy impression, and then the muddy impression was over. And at last disappeared altogether. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered means the confused boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent, which means invisible. So these were the footprints of a scientist who has discovered an art, who has discovered the procedure where he can make the human body go transparent, invisible. That is why that body is not visible, only the footprints are visible. For example, somebody who is walking bare feet and then they chance to step in the mud, and then further if their body is not visible, if they walk, that person walk. So what happens is that person's feet, those feet are actually visible but not the body. Griffin, the scientist, had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body could become invisible. This I already told you. This Griffin, a very greedy scientist, had actually come up to this experiments and discovery, and finally he had made it possible that the human body becomes completely invisible, and he has made this entire trial on his own self. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. Now, although he is a very brilliant scientist, this I already told you, that he is very famous and very skilled and very brilliant, knowledgeable scientist, but then this scientist is misusing science. He is misusing because he is becoming just invisible and trying to gain things here and there, money, maybe other things also, and trying to just spread the waves of havoc in the society. Griffin was rather a lawless person. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. Eject means just shoo him out of his house. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Now what happens is, this is a little tricky, and my dear children, here you have to understand, the body becomes invisible. For example, somebody or that scientist, for example, if I am that scientist, so my body will become invisible, right? But if I put on attire on my body, if I wear this shirt or this suit or any blazer, so that blazer, and if I'm carrying some pen or something, even those things will be visible. Things will be visible, not the body. Okay, so you can see if you see like that. For example, an invisible body is walking, putting on the clothes. So the clothes will be visible, but not the body. So it looks like the clothes are hanging in the air and they're just moving like that. So in order to do that, just to avoid confusion and chaos, he would be covering his upper head with hat and cover his face with bandages and gloves. So the gloves are visible. The bandages, when he's tying the bandages all around his face, so those bandages are visible. He's wearing goggles also, so those goggles are also visible, and a hat also. So it looks like somebody is walking, but not the body. So skin is not visible, only that tied up those clothes and that hat and those goggles and those gloves. So it looks like, even shoes, so it looks like somebody is walking, and he will cover his high neck, so that the clothes are visible but not the body. So people might think, okay, this man must be feeling a little cold, and London is a very cold area also, so that is why nobody even doubted, and people thought maybe somebody is feeling extremely cold, that is why he has covered himself so well in order to protect himself from the cold. But then this was Griffin, whose body was invisible, and when he had a little mess up with his landlord, they fought. Landlord and Griffin, they fought. For there is entire series of it, you should read, Invisible Man, H.G. Wells. So here if you read more about it, so you'll come to know that this landlord was very much upset with his ways. He is just carrying on his experiments, and he's shouting in the room upstairs and all that. So that is why his landlord just gave him this order that you are supposed to eject my house. Griffin was angry. Before leaving the house, he had taken away everything, and then he had set the house on fire. So from this instance itself, we can come to know that Griffin is a very lawless person, as well as he is full of revenge also. He's not a good soul. Thus, it was that he became a homeless wanderer without clothes. So when he left the house, he had to just remove all his clothes. Why does he have to remove all his clothes? He has to remove his clothes because if he doesn't remove his clothes, people can catch him. So he removed his clothes so nobody is seen, because those at that time even the clothes were visible, not the body, because he has devised out the method. If he becomes clothless, then nothing is visible. So that is why he just got away with all his clothes and just removed all his clothes and ran away, setting the house on fire. Without money and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud, and he's walking, and suddenly he happened to just step in some mud, so his feet became muddy, and that is why the impression of the feet is visible, not the body. Now you know the real thing, why those footprints were walking. Those footprints were of that naked Griffin, whose body was not visible, but the footprints were visible because he chanced to be there happened to step in some mud. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London, but his adventures were by no means over. Naturally, when he's walking, he's without clothes and it's all chill all around, it's too much cold. So he has to face a lot of other challenges also. So adventures are still not over. He had chosen a bad time for the year to wander about London without clothes. He's taken a very bad time to fight with his landlord, and without clothes he's remaining, because this is not the right time. It is not summer season, this is winter, and in winter in London, remaining without clothes is just inviting death. It was midwinter, the air was bitterly cold, and he could not do without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. So he decided to go to a shopping mall kind of a place where he can stay, and when people will leave at night, he can eat also there when everybody else has gone locked, because nobody knows that somebody is inside. How? Because Griffin is completely clothless, so he is invisible. So after the entire department of that store is, they have gone, Griffin can then start up his things. He can wear clothes, he can warm himself up, he can have some edibles also, because in the departmental stores you can that all edibles and everything, even clothes and everything is easily available. So he thought that it is a good idea that he should go to a London store, departmental store. There he can have food as well as other things as well. Closing time arrived, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regards to expense. He had to pay no money because the staff had now gone. There is nobody, so he can enjoy things freely. He broke open boxes, wrappers, fitted himself out in the warm clothes, soon with shoes, an overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat. I already told you that he was wearing a hat also. And he became fully dressed and visible person. How did he become visible? Not by anything else, but because of the clothes that he is wearing. He has covered himself from top to bottom. So it looks like a figure, some men. But then here, once he removes the clothes, he again becomes invisible, because at that time only his clothes are visible. He has devised out the method that his body has become transparent. It is not visible at all. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts, and then he had a hearty, dinner. He had taken everything what he wanted to. There were things available, cold meat and coffee and all that. So he had taken that, sweets also, wine also, and there were quilts, because it was a grocery, it was a big departmental store. So, in the grocery section he had eaten, and then there were quilts. So he spread the quilts and he slept there. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. The point is that he kept sleeping, and early morning the staff came to open the shop. And now the staff is startled. How come somebody is sleeping? Because he's wearing clothes also, he's sleeping nicely. So staff is like, some thief or what? As it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. When he saw a couple of them approaching, he panicked and he began to run. And remember, every time Griffin is running, he is removing his clothes so that he is not seen. People cannot catch him. They naturally gave chase. In the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. So it was midwinter and he just had a little relief, and then now he was caught in the London store, so he had to remove all his clothes. So once more he found himself invisible but naked in the chill January air. At this time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company in the hope of finding not only the clothes but also something he would hide the empty space above his shoulder. So this part, for example, even if he's wearing the hat, what happens is this part looks empty. So he has to have some bandages or something. So he decided to go to a drama kind of a rehearsal, place where there are fancy attires, clothes. In the drama company, you see all the fancy clothes, mustaches and all the wigs and everything is available. So he decided to go next. First he had gone to the London store, but he was facing some problem, and then he went to the drama company. Shivering with cold, he hurried to Drury Lane, the center of the theatre world. So he had gone to the theatre world center, which is Drury Lane in London, of course. He soon found a suitable shop. He made his way invisible upstairs and came out a little later wearing bandages around his forehead. I told you that he had covered his entire face with bandages. Only he left only this much portion. Otherwise, if he covers this portion also, then his eyes will also be wrapped, so he can't see. So that is why he only just left this much portion. Otherwise, the entire portion he had covered with bandages, and he had put on goggles also, and then the hat, and he has covered the entire thing till here with muffler. So he looks like a proper guy now. And of course, he's wearing, suit and everything. Dark glasses, false nose. Yes, of course. Here also, if he doesn't put anything, so it looks like this area is empty. So, for this area, he cannot wrap up bandages here. Otherwise, it will be difficult for him to breathe. So, here, this area, he just wore a false nose. This is very interesting. You should imagine all this. To escape without being seen, he callously attacked the shopkeeper, and he very badly, callously means very badly, he attacked the shopkeeper, from behind, after which he robbed him of all the money and he just took all the money from the shopkeeper. He could find, eager to get away from crowded London, he took a train to the village of Epping. Now he had gone to Epping. Why did he go to Epping? Because Epping is a very silent place. It's just a suburban area, the nearby villages to London. So he had gone to one of the villages, which is Epping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn.
To watch the complete video, download the Upbind educational app from Play Store and App Store.